Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Asad Lalji. Welcome to another exciting live session of Avid Online. I hope all of you have been staying in and tuning in to our online episodes and live sessions. For those who have not attended an Avid Learning program before, please refer to the chat box for a brief introduction about us and our illustrious partners. Avid Online was launched as a digital further learning campaign in response to this global pandemic on the 1st of April, 2020. The objective was to enable patrons and stakeholders like yourselves to engage with a range of topics across the breadth of the arts in these unprecedented times. The focus of the campaign is to keep members of the creative community connected, facilitate interactions, and exchange of ideas while looking to the future with optimism, hope, and renewed learning. Over the past 4 months, we have curated over 100 programs, and in fact, this is our 102nd, a mix of live sessions and Avid Online videos. We thank you for the encouragement in tuning in as you have done today, or accessing our programs on YouTube at your convenience. As we continue to evolve this campaign, we strive to reintroduce our successful offline formats online, continue to partner with our collaborators, as we have done today, and engage with new themes, perspectives, organizations to reinforce our mantra that learning never stops. Today's session is the concluding segment of the second edition of Sustainability Now, Conversations for a Greener Future, a week of programming dedicated to continuing and strengthening conversations around the ecological struggle, innovation, attitudes and industrial shifts, government and individual responsibilities, and so much more. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sabyasachi Mukherjee, Brinda Miller, Joythi, Urvashi, and the rest of the CSMVS team for collaborating with us to present the series. I hope you've been tuning in through the week to our Avid Online episodes and also our live panel discussion earlier this week on sustainability and technology. This brings me to our evening session. The Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya and Avid Learning present Sustainability Now, Rethinking Materials, a fascinating live session with Material Explorer Spriha Chokhani. For more about her, please refer to her bio that has been posted in the chat section and also shared earlier with you through your confirmations. In today's session, Spriha will elaborate on the importance of the right materials, the various alternatives available, using thought-provoking case studies and drawing on her own experience as a material explorer through her experiments at her studio, Pulp Factory. Spriha will take us, we should have us relook, reevaluate our use of materials and understand their impact and explore new innovations in the space. Please do keep an eye out for the chat box for more details on some of the examples and best practices that shared by Spriha in her presentation. Please note, the presentation will last about 75 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A, where Spriha will be taking questions and comments that you have addressed. So please start posting them in the chat section, and we will make sure she answers them. If not during the session, post that. So on that note, thank you once again for tuning in. Over to you, Spriha. Look forward to a fascinating session.
Hi, Asad. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for hosting a webinar on sustainable design. I guess it is indeed very important for us to question everything we have considered as normal now, considering all of us are sitting at home. So I guess like how I would start the session is I will take you through my presentation. I'll talk about the importance of sustainable design and why it is extremely important for us today. All right, okay. So let's start. Hi, And thank you everyone for joining us here. Thank you, Asad, for starting this webinar. And I guess it's really, really important for all of us to actually look at it and reevaluate everything that we are doing, considering all of us are sitting at home right now and attending workshops. Now I request everybody, everyone who's joined us, thank you so much. Um, I would request everyone to read these letters individually. First, I'll give you like about 10-15 seconds. Read these letters individually and then bring all the letters together. You can just shout out at the chat box to know if you're done, most of you, some of you, and then we can the idea um, the idea about this, the idea about the exercise is for us to just understand how actually we think about waste. It is considered as one of our most, it's considered extremely irrelevant, right? Because we look at waste from we don't really look at what kind of waste we generate as consumers. Forget about the kind of waste that is being that is being made during production, during the post-production time or pre-production time or pre-consumption time. That is a kind of waste that we've not even we don't even know about. But then I guess one can also say that one of the reasons why we don't see or talk about is because uh, it all started in during the Industrial Revolution time. That is when the World War had happened. Everybody was looking forward for machine-made, man-made materials. It was the new era where we thought that yes, this is what it is, and we will create a different space without thinking about what will happen to the product at the end of it, right? So, and that is what we are facing today. We have created so much waste that that there's a possibility of ocean, like a small island in the ocean, which is just complete. I would just say that it is very important for us to start looking at not only questioning what kind of material are we, what kind of material are we uh, wearing or working with as designers or as consumers, what kind of material are we bringing home. It is very important for us to start rethinking and reevaluating all of it all together, right? Um, so this session we will try to reconsider our choices. Can a change in material thinking actually create a positive effect, or is it a far-fetched idea? What does sustainability actually mean? Sorry, I'm in Assam and there is a light cut out. I hope you guys can still see me and the presentation. What does sustainability mean, and should the product be sustainable or the entire process needs to be sustainable? Because we constantly worry about, there are a lot of us who are looking at just the end product, but what happens in the process, does that matter at all? We will be looking at, does it have a domino effect? Like, what kind of domino effect does it have? Can one material change the local environment? For instance, if I work with paper, and so by using paper, by using waste paper, can I create, can that join different dots? For example, from the kabadiwalas to the pulpers to the makers to the consumers, and then it goes back to the soil. So is there a sort of a sustainable domino effect when we are talking about material and how we are looking at material differently? Can that be worked out? So these are a couple of things that we will actually just look at during the session. Let me also tell you that the session is, the subject is extremely large. Material design, material thinking is an extremely large subject. And over here, we will just, I'll just try to put uh, the right questions. You have to question everything that you do now, like, the materials. It's material thinking is about questioning the right questions. It's not about receiving the answers, or the answers will automatically come. It's about looking at different styles and approaches, like, bring the disruption in your in the methods, right? Uh, so the first person I would like to introduce you to is Anupama Kundu. Anupama Kundu is she's a material researcher, a sustainable architect. She has been practicing. She's been practicing sustainable architecture since 1990. She was one of the first few who actually had a vision to see that an ecological setup is extremely important for growth and for sustainable environment, and to create a local economy, to make sure that everyone around is also self-sufficient. So if you look at the top image on the left, in your left hand side, she's used terracotta cooking dishes as filler slabs. They've used glass, like on the top bottom. The left bottom, you will see, like right on the top, if you can see my cursor moving here, you will see that these are images of terracotta glasses, right? So it's important how she's taken one material like clay, used a basic technique like pottery, which has been which is a part of our lifestyle for the longest time. It's not only an Indian thing, it's all over. There are different types of makers all over the world who are working with the clay. Clay is like the first material that we work with, and she's used that in the most innovative and a most uh, ecological way. The second one I would like to show is this slide, which is on your top right. This is again a very interesting thing about. Another interesting thing about this particular design is that she's used white granite. She's used white granite. She's not polished them. The idea again over here is to merge. Is to is to explore materials which are locally available, which employ or enhance the craftsmen, which requires manual touch, which is not machine made, which is not which needs labor, and which needs hand, and which needs uh, like which need like a system where one can look at different possibilities. Down bottom again over here, we see filler labs, which is again terracotta clay pots, which was used. These constructions were done in 2000. Like she started as early as that, to understand the possibilities of eco building and what kind of eco buildings can be done. This is a very fine experiment of clearly pushing boundaries with one particular material. So this was a project that she did in Orville along with Waymaker. He's a potter who's based out of Orville again. So this was his this is his understanding and technology of how can you make like really massive big kilns, which can also be used as houses. So essentially what they did in this aspect over here is that they made like a huge, massive kiln, which was then used as a kiln. And they had put all the bricks which was to be used in probably, another site. And over here, they have then this was actually converted into a house for homeless people, or for homeless people or for orphanage. So again, this is again how, this is again a very interesting way, or a very clear example of pushing boundaries, and daring to make something which is not only sustainable, but also it involves local artists, makers, local material, everything which is just around you. You really don't have to look too far. I mean, like, you really don't need for example, in this, like, it's this is white granite from Tamil Nadu, but we do see that there's crazy influx of white marble from, like, the Italian marbles and stuff like that. The question is, does that Italian marble actually work really well with the Indian atmosphere? These are the things that you, like, when you're looking at material, you have to, like, really question what are the properties of each material. So here she always manages to she's somehow managed to crack that of using the right material, which not only works in terms of which is not only cool and airy and nice, but it also takes care of everything around it. Now, this is just an example of, how she's done it, like, aesthetically. This is a local craftsman in Tamil Nadu. She worked with, sorry, and that is where there was crazy amount of. I mean, imagine the amount of labor that must have gone into it. But imagine the kind of local economy that was created around it. Instead of buying cement from somewhere else, or looking at different types of fillers, which would be probably really expensive on one hand, which will also have a devastating effect on just the environment and the transportation. Like, these are little things that one has to, like, really consider. Like, if I'm calling from something which is from, let's say, which is from Italy or France, and it's only available there, the amount of the fossil fuel that is being used, that travels from that A place to B place, that these are little things that, it's interesting to look at how, whether that material will also really affect, like, for example, I'm just going to take again the Italian marble example. It's very interesting that during summers, I stay in Rajasthan, and it's absolutely crazy to see that during summers the marbles are hot. It's just impossible to live inside that room, and in winters it's chilling cold. Like, it does not have any. There's no balance. But at the same time, if you go to the older architecture which was done in Rajasthan, I mean, if you go to Jaipur and if you visit Hawa Mahal, if you visit Hawa Mahal during the afternoon, where the temperature is, let's say, around 45 degrees, which is crazy, the ACs are probably not working during that time. What happens is that the way Hawa Mahal is actually constructed, though it's used only local, of course, material, they've just used local material which is available in and around Rajasthan. So the environment within the mahal is absolutely cool. The wind is cooler, the space is better. You just feel that you walked into a nicer and a more it has a very welcoming spring-like effect. So that is the importance of, like, what I'm trying to say here is that how important it is for us to actually use the materials which are present locally, how it makes an impact on our living condition, not only environmentally. That is one aspect, but the other aspect is how it changes our own behavior, and how it affects our thinking. when you're in a room which is completely made with steel versus when you're in a room which is something like a terracotta space, which is earthy and which has you automatically there's a shift in feeling that you have, and maybe you can try it next time when you are walking. You are in two different parts of the world. Once you walk into a mall where there's everything bright, shiny, everything, but then you go uh, to a sustainable housing unit, and then just see, there's a different kind of feeling that it has. It makes you, it's almost, like, possibly it's just like, you're just thinking by yourself, or it's just a mind game. But you do tend to feel more at ease when you are surrounded by nature, when you are surrounded by things which look familiar, you know. On your on your left bottom, we see this origami structure. This is something that they've been working on, and I believe they should be soon presenting this out in Vienna Museum in Copenhagen. Uh, Here, what they are working on something known as ferrocement, which is again a very interesting material. It has, I mean, you can look up about it on her Instagram post. There's a detailed understanding. She's done many talks on ferrocement and what ferrocement is all about. Uh, Essentially, the idea over here is to use a material which is quick, which can be, it's just picked up, wrapped up, and moved around. So over here they've used this origami structure, which essentially just you can clip it together and then just carry it on your shoulder and then move on, right? So that is another example of how, when you think through material, how, like, it just starts taking, like, once you start designing through material instead of looking at material right at the end, but you start designing from the material perspective, then automatically things sort of there's a different spectrum that opens up here. Here in 2012, they rebuilt the wall house. This is like an example of the wall house that they had made. So there, what she did was again a very interesting situation, because she traveled with all the local artisans and masons had who were part of a team in Oregon in 2000, when they had made the wall house for the first time as an experiment. Uh, so they all traveled together. So it was a collaboration between the University of Queensland and the local masons of Tamil Nadu. Um, it's a this entire yeah. So um, she so this is extremely interesting, because we generally we don't look at skilled people as educated people, right? So, like, the ones who have their hands, the ones who are working with hands and stuff, for example, a craftsman, or uh, a weaver or a potter, or I mean, like, we don't see skilled handwork, or we don't look at skill as an educated bunch of people. So here she has very smoothly broken the taboo of, and brought everybody at par of, like, everybody, like, right from the person who's making, the maker, who is right like at the beginning of the stage, probably the spinner. Uh, for example, over here is the potter. The potter, right from the potter till the end, uh, from like from the potter to the designers to the construction, everybody is correlated. And so, I mean, I really yeah, I really like this. I like the idea about around the fact that there's no hierarchy over here. It's everybody is like on the same page. Um, so yeah, so that is about Anupama Kundu. You can also have a, I mean, you can check out her websites. You can look her up on Instagram. She's done some fabulous stuff. She's one of my inspirations. Uh, so you could just look up Anupama. Second one I would like to introduce is Ant Studio. Ant Studio is a architectural firm in Delhi. They have been working again with different types of sustainable methods. But what is very fascinating is this particular project that they've done. This is again terracotta and technology, like how they've combined terracotta and technology. So what I would like everyone to do is just next time when you walk out and you're probably going for a chai or like coffee or something, just look at any building facade, right, and just count the number of ACs which is there. Just one building and one side of the facade, count the number, and just imagine the energy consumption and multiply it. Just multiply it by block, and then you will realize the amount of energy that we consume every day. And where's that energy coming from is something that we need to start questioning. And why do we need that kind of energy, right? So again, these are all extremely interrelated. So here, what they've decided, they are experimenting with, is to create a beehive, water cooling system, where terracotta has been used in different, has been placed together like a beehive, and then the water, there's a water pump which you can refill once a month, because it has a recycle. You can recycle the water on an everyday basis. Um, and yeah, so they created a beehive inspired water cooler. Again, how they have seen the clay as a property is again it's interesting uh, because clay, we know that we have been using, like, especially in Rajasthan and the west, in Gujarat, Rajasthan, like the western part of the country where it's extremely dry. Uh, you always see every house has a earthen pot. There's a gada, and the water is cool out. There's no cool. It's really cool and it's refreshing, and you feel good, right? So clay actually has a property in which it can absorb the water molecules, which in effect, when the air is blown, it creates, like, especially in this particular image, uh, when the air is blown, it creates a certain sort of cooling space. So Ant Studio is trying to essentially experiment with technologies, with local materials and technologies that can help reduce the power consumption in different houses and yeah, in houses and industrial areas and factories, because we do tend to use an extreme amount of power. So again, I would just like to emphasize on it. Just next time when you walk around, walk around, and when you're just want to walk, just count the number of ACs, and just imagine the amount of energy that is being used, A, and the kind of pollution that is creating, B. Just that, and this question, like I said, that this entire presentation is about us re-questioning whatever we've been doing and why we've been doing it, right? Um, so that was an introduction to Ant Studio and to Anupama KUNDOO. Uh, we have all the details on the chat box, so if you would like to, you can always go and visit their sites to see in more detail about what they do and how they work. Now, the next project that I will introduce you to is Pulp Factory, which is a project of mine. I have been working with this. It started in 2010 as my diploma project at Srishti. Uh, but this material has sort of opened in extremely different avenues for me. a different world altogether. Like I always feel like whenever I think that I'm coming closer to something, it's like it's almost like expanding more. So, you really don't know how much more can one material give, right? So, let me just say that when I actually first started working with paper, my first initial idea, that was into 2010. My idea was to actually just I was curious. I was really curious about why is nobody working with paper mache. I had everyone around me who was working with different kinds of other crafts, but there was there were hardly. I mean, there was nobody who's really working with paper mache as a material. So that is what caught my curiosity. And the second was I just really wanted to see if I can make furniture out of it, right? So that was it. That is how I started this project. Uh, but and I was using. So now we are in like 2 weeks of my project. It used to be like just like 3 months. It was an intensive 3 months project where you have to make your project, present it, and and then it has to be evaluated, right? So now let's say we were in like in my second week into the project, and I was using all kinds of chemicals because back then my idea was just to make sure that it can work, right? Like that was my aim, that I can make furniture which is out of paper. I use different materials like, of course, Fevicol was the first, but there are these other different chemical adhesives, which ranged from all the way from, uh, you know, high VOC oriented versus to glass materials, to glass fiber, everything. Beautiful texture, it looked gorgeous, everything was really nice. But the thing is that uh, I fell ill around the third week, the second or the third week of my project, and that was sort of a wake up call for me. That is when I realized that we need to. That is when it was. Yeah, that was a wake up call for me. The question that I asked was that if the maker is not safe and sound around making of that particular product, then what is the point of doing it? Like, what is the point of creating a product over here? Back then, around that time, I was really not looking into how sustainable the product is, or whether I'm using, whether I'm using waste as a material. Yes, there were a lot of waste around. I used waste, but that was just like an easily available material, that newspaper is available over there. We have uh, paper, paper books, which in all the schools and colleges, which are just lying, and which just eventually gets discarded. So I used all of that to experiment with it. But everything changed when I was like, okay, no, if I as a maker is not, if my well-being is not taken care of while I'm making it, then what is the point of making this particular product? So that is how my journey for this paper actually, sort of started. So uh, yeah. So here we will look at. So this is where so I started with paper making. I mean, like I started with furniture, uh, base regular furniture, and then it also expanded my view on what is paper textiles. Paper textiles is also it's an extremely old technique that was done in Japan and China. I think China was the first one to start this. It has, paper textile has a very interesting it has a very interesting story. So essentially, how it all started was when we look at some a warrior had to cross the war zone, and then he without getting caught. So basically, he cut the manuscript into strips, wove it, and then he walked across the war field to give the entire idea or whatever the message was, and then the king was extremely happy about this, and then he decided that, okay, let's start this new thing, which was paper textile. Before I go to my next slide, I just want to tell you that even paper mache, how did paper mache actually start? If you look at the history of paper mache, uh, paper making is one of the very oldest form of, that is like first one of the first materials that we've ever made, like paper. Like it started from papyrus, and then it moved down, and then we had like kazi papers, and we had like different kinds of papers, handmade papers, and all of that. Uh, and it traveled. It traveled from Japan, China, Japan. Then it came somewhere around Middle East. Then at some point, just before uh, paper became uh, um, it became a war material actually after the World War, during the World War, because it was one of the cheapest material, and that is how the wood material. I mean, that is how that happened in Europe, and that is how people started using. That is how people started using that. That was the introduction to wood paper. Prior to that, we were using different types. That we were using grass and uh, mulberry trees to make papers. But coming back to the point, paper mache actually started because there was waste that was created while making paper. So how do you, so this was a byproduct. Paper mache is actually a byproduct. One can say that it's a byproduct of what is paper making. And the first thing that was made was a helmet. We have seen that through paper mache, one has made, bullets. There have been boats that have been made. Uh, but during the World War, everything sort of nullified, because it became, it turned into a, um, it turned into a, yeah, sorry. It turned during the World War. It turned into a cheap material, and once the war was over, paper was actually looked down upon. Nobody really saw paper as a prime material. But prior to that, paper was considered as one of the most prominent, and one of the most. It was like paper textile was actually considered higher than silk in terms of hierarchy. So what we do actually over here is we create here we've tried to look at different properties of paper. What are the different types of, I mean, how we can use paper, how we can use it in textiles, or whether we can convert it into a shoe, whether it is washable, whether does it leave out. Is it ethical? Is it, does it run? Is it heavy enough? Does it carry the weight? How much weight can it carry? Is it light enough? So these are the different, these are the different things that one looks at, and one sees. Um, okay, so from here I'll probably take you to something which we've been hearing for a long time, which is circular economy. What is circular economy? How do we understand circular economy, and why is it important? Why is circular economy important for us now? So, and why do we need to think about circular economy at all? Like linear economy was a part of it, right? Like so. Okay, so the thing is that let me tell you there are two types of economy. One is a linear economy. A linear economy is something that we've been following right now. We've been doing linear economy. Linear economy is a situation where you take a product, um, it goes through, you design a product, it goes through manufacturing phase, it goes through a production phase, it goes through marketing phase, it goes through marketing, consumption, and then it goes to the landfill, right? So it's a straight line. There is no uh, it it's an end game. The end game is landfill. We don't think about whether one can and this yeah, you don't think about the what happens to the product, right? Whereas circular economy is the new kind of economy which a lot of people are really talking about. It is it is really important for us to look at circular economy, because we need to break the chain. We need to break the chain of waste. How do we bring the waste back? So essentially, a linear economy is when the post-consumed product ends up in a landfill, whereas in a circular economy, the discarded product comes back to the manufacturer, right? Which means that one can control the waste. You know what amount of waste is being produced, because it's coming back to you. Now there are two types of there are multiple types of there are multiple sections in it. So but I'll just focus on what we do at Pulp Factory. So we are concentrating on two types. One is the circular cycle and one is the bio cycle. Now, when it comes to circular cycle, a circular cycle means that you take a product. For instance, here we have taken paper, which is we take fashion waste. From fashion waste is converted into paper by the local artisans in Rajasthan. Sangrahalaya is very well known for its handmade paper making. Uh, we source the paper from them, then we spin them into yarn. The yarn is then woven into fabrics, and then after that, there are different types of products that can be made out of it. But one can send us the material back so that we can put it back into the manufacturing product, right? So this becomes a circular. This is what is a circular cycle, where the end product, the consumed product, can come back to the manufacturers and they can use it. Whereas a biocycle is what we do with our paper furniture. That is when we need we collect all our paper parts from the kabadiwalas, the local kabadiwalas. It's a sort of yeah. So we collect it from the kabadiwalas, and then we convert it into a product. We make it into a product. We use only natural adhesives. We don't. We are not. Yeah, we use only natural adhesives, because that is the crux of how, that is also another important aspect of circular economy, that how much of natural resources are we using and how well are we using it. So this is where we use natural resources and minerals. We convert the waste into furniture. The furniture is then consumed. But once it's done, once you've finished consuming it, one can always decompose it. Now, the fact is that our furnitures are completely made out of newspaper pulp, right? So there's no other material added to it apart from the natural resin that we use to bind them together, and the natural waxes that have been used to make it waterproof and water repellent, right? So one can very easily decompose it in like about 90 days, because that is an average time where a paper can be decomposed. Uh, and then you can put it in your plant, in your plant, and then like in your soil, and then you can create like it can be created into, and it can grow into a tree. Or so yeah, so Pulp Factory. I mean, over here, what I was trying. Sorry for the mess. So here I was actually just trying to say that it is extremely important for us to question the process, like, because if we don't question our process of how we are making it, then it's quite possible that we'll end up creating more waste than actually reusing the waste. So at Pulp Factory, we really try to make sure that we use either the molds that we are using are either recyclable, or it has a circular cycle and it can be melted or reused in different ways, or it can be completely biodegraded. To make sure that even the process is absolutely sustainable, and it is also completely It follows the exact similar method of sustainable design. Uh, so the question now, quickly, we'll just go through how do we decide when do we stop working with a material, right? Like how do we use a material and who decides that? So I guess like for me over here, uh, during this quarantine period, I have actually been exploring a lot of during this quarantine period, I've been exploring a lot of biomaterials and how one can use it. The left image is when I was trying to see if when we burn a paper product, how does it catch fire immediately, or does it burn? How does it burn? So this particular product over here is, I was trying to like look at the different, I was actually trying to maintain the texture which was similar to a burnt wood. We did manage to keep and not convert this into complete dust. On the right, you see the right top here. I'm experimenting with different type of like a biomaterial using uh, paper waste. If you just look at my screen instead of the presentation, you'll see like these are the different types of pieces that we've been working on to see whether I know we can make furniture and we can do textiles out of it, but then what else can be done with it? Like can we make leather? Can we make paper leather? Can we uh, use it for packaging industry? Use? How can we create or mold it into different shapes? So these are like different types of paper experiments with you while using biomaterials. There's this another piece. It has like a pretty interesting texture, and you can play with light and. So yeah, it's always a ongoing process. You are experimenting, you're exploring, you are just like trying to see how much more can you do with it, but yet make sure that it does either it follows a circular cycle or a biocycle. Uh, I'll quickly take you through other designers who've been working with biomaterial. This is going to be a fast, quick session. Uh, we've heard about MALAI biomaterial, Susanna. She's working with she's a material researcher again. She's using coconut water waste produced in production in coconut factories in Kerala. She's been working with so she takes like these are her basic ingredients, which is hemp bacteria, which is developed on the coconut water, which is like the left bottom. That is the bacteria, I guess. The natural gums and resins, which actually brings me to a question: where is design and agriculture related? At Pulp Factory, we are using natural resins, which is again made out of, which is procured from natural material. Like it's a plant-based resin. Here, what she's using is a pine resin. These are again like plant-based resins. Uh, there's she's using banana, she's using hemp and scissors. Banana is, Kerala has like some 50 varieties of bananas, right? So there's a different kind of production that takes place. So what do you do with the stem that is created? That you can always make paper, you can also make paper out of banana fibers, but uh, what more can you do? So the question is that, is craft and agriculture correlated? Like, even in our GDP, if you look at it, it used to be agriculture, and the second sector was craft. So is there a correlation with it? Like when we look at khadi, like the organic farmers who are growing local indigenous khadi cotton. How is a mill production cotton affecting the cotton that is being produced by the uh, you know, by the spinners who's using local indigenous seeds. So again, just a thought where it's just to know, like, it's just a question, like, is it relatable? Like, is craft and design and agriculture all in one loop? And uh, if we actually start thinking backwards, can we actually create a system around it which affects everything holistically? Uh, the second one, her products are all handmade and biodegradable. The second one is Deserto. They are Mexican-based guys who are working with cactus. Again, it has influence of farming. They use cactus farming to make leather-like material. You can check out their website to know more about their work. They showcased this product only last year in 2019. We have a Swedish group of people who are working with industrial mining and food waste, and what kind of food waste is being created, like for example bones, like how are you using the bones. So some of the experiments that they've done over here is actually used the bones that is left behind from the meat industry. This on the top corner over here, we have iron ore and paper waste that they've come together and they've utilized it while using only natural biomaterial. Uh, they've developed composites are biodegradable, renewable, and bioenhancing. So bioenhancing means like when a product is put back into the soil and it decomposes and it actually adds nutrients to the area around. This by far is my one of my favorite. It's by Swedish, a Copenhagen designer called Bonnie H. She has been working with active charcoal to use and with other biomaterials to make a fabric which is leather-like but not leather. But this is like the first step, and experimentations are still on, and they are trying to figure out how biomaterial can be used in textile at a larger, at a larger or at an industrial level. So in this particular space, we are looking at yeah. So and this particular design was actually showcased in London this year. It was a collaboration between Bonnie and another designer from London. JONAS is another material researcher, again based out of Copenhagen. He's been working with mushrooms and how mushrooms can actually grow into different shapes that you put it in. Mycelium is a very interesting. It's a fairly new, but it's a fairly new material that we are working with, like people are working with, but it has an immense amount of possibilities. There are a lot of other designers who are also working and experimenting with mycelium, but he's one of the first few who started, and he's really, uh, figured out ways, and he's understood the nuances of how to use mushroom with different materials. Like for instance, on the top right, we see is like these are the experiments that they've done to see whether the product can be soundproof. So like apart from a decorative product, can we also use these different biomaterials that can be used as at a more functional level. Uh, Paula N. She is she's again a material researcher. I think she's based out of Germany. She has been she's been working with material, doing a lot of research on how food waste, like she's basically concentrating on food waste, which is during the production. So here what we see is cocoa. She has converted cocoa waste into a biomaterial which can now be used as food containers, which is on your right top. So these are different designers all around the world who are actually just experimenting and seeing the possibilities of a new material and how one can use it. For example, Finite now is a company. It's again a lab, a studio researcher uh, where they are looking at sand as an option for to. They're using sand as an option to see whether it can be used for construction purposes, because as we know that Earth is actually running out of the topsoil because we are constructing so much. There's so much sand that is being used for everyday construction. So this is another alternative that is being looked at. That is desert sand, whether it can be used as residential concrete. Okay, so I would just like to conclude my session by saying that uh, a right material can actually have a very strong and a positive impact. It can we should explore and see. A lot of time there's just an idea in our head, and it needs to be executed to know whether it's possible or it's not possible. And yeah, so I would. This was my this was one of the experiments that we had done during our photo shoot. It was just a fantasy to see whether the furniture can take the elephant's weight. So we hadn't carried more than one piece. Once we reached there, like, what if it breaks? So this was our only shot, and surprisingly, uh, this really reinstated my belief in looking at paper as a material, because it, I mean, like, it's really strong. It's strong enough to hold an elephant's foot. So it's just like, sometimes when you're working on your own, and when you're looking at material, there are probably sort of self doubts that come. So you got to also look at different materials, explore them and see, and put yourself out of that comfort zone to fail probably once in a while. So yeah, so thank you for hosting me, Asad and our team, and I would just give you a brief exercise that you can do it at your place. It's I think we'll just put it on also on the chat box for you to see. It's basically a material, biomaterial, DIY biomaterial for you that you can do it at home. Uh, and Asad, can we have that
Yeah.
on the
Dhwani, can you
chat?
share that image?
Well, you can start talking about it, and Dhwani will pull the recipe up for you.
Okay, perfect. So basically, I'm just going to tell you about. Uh, he This was actually done by an art by he was a forest official who created this recipe, which actually uses millet and rice and millet, rice, and ghee. So you can basically make just like a bowl or a spoon at home. So this is just a DIY biomaterial for you to do. You have to. I'll just pull out the recipe for you to see. Yeah, there it is. So 80 ml of water, 60 grams of millet. Millet would be jowar ka atta, rice, and 20 grams of wheat. Preheat the oven, just like how basically we bake. That is how you have to use this, and you can try it at home. You can see it whether it works, it does not work, or it needs a different kind of uh, you know if it requires anything. Okay. Okay. So so should I just switch to questions now to answer them?
Do you want to put some context to this, or we can switch to
Okay. Essentially, what I'm trying, what I mean, this is just an introduction to biomaterial, and like the fact that biomaterial is essentially everything and anything that is around us. And while we are looking at, like, let's just look at every material which is around us a little differently. Like, who thought that millet, rice, and wheat put together can actually create a spoon that you can, drink with, or you can eat with, and this really stops like a lot of plastic utensils. So yeah, I guess like you can, everybody should just try, and one can tell me if it works out or if this recipe actually did not work out, or what. I mean, you can post some of images and tag Pulp Factory and Avid Learning to see whether this happened or not. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sriya, for such a wonderful presentation. And thank you for our audiences who've actually stayed with us through the technology glitches that we've had. But see, we've got lovely questions for you. And I mean, we've got so many questions to ask you. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to start with a few and then I'll take the audience questions that we've collected. We're going through some very interesting times. It's pretty unprecedented times. So how do you see the future of materiality playing out in the light of the COVID-19 crisis? Will people adopt the philosophy of less is more and come out producing, using, and consuming less materials? What's the future looking like to you?
I think even as a design practitioner and the one who's doing this, like it is I've been doing for last 10 years, and it is essentially extremely important for us to also question how much are we consuming. Like
Hmm.
one can always look at materials, but one also has to understand what is the consumption. So when we talk about slow making, or slow design, that is it is actually just taking into consideration all of these different aspects where everybody is getting connected, right? So it's just not that a person who's consuming the product, but if you are consuming one particular product, that product is affecting other lives. So I think that the future is also somewhat related to that. Now more and more people are getting, they are aware of the fact that one has to be extremely aware of what they're consuming and why are they consuming. So in terms of sustainable design, in terms of, I think this is like the prime time for all of us to really indulge and like see and reevaluate our ethos and values. And yeah,
So less is the new more.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. So tell us about, India's rich heritage with respect to materiality and how it's being preserved and revived. You spoke about China and paper textile. You spoke about Hawa Mahal, which is a fabulous example. So can you share some light on our rich heritage with respect to materiality?
So it's right. So it's very interesting actually. Every part, every different aspect. I mean, like when you just go through India, then you would see that there are different. Every region has its own craft, right? And all the craft is all it's all connected. Like for example, the architectural, the architecture pieces in Rajasthan, that is all like those are all limestones and stuff that was provided locally. So there are a lot of people who've also again started bringing that back. For example, the heritage of handloom, like handloom is one of the most prized possession that we have actually, and it is about how do we keep that going? How is it that, like for example, Assam has something known as Muga silk. That Muga silk is not available in any part of the world because it's drawn out from a particular insect, which is only geographically available. So
Sure.
we do have like really amazing, like, or if you go down south in Karnataka, we have the Mysore craft. So yeah, I mean, if I got your question right, I mean, like, we have like uh, multiple materials that we are using in craft, except that it's time for us to actually take pride in the craft and like uplift the material, and put it out in a way where it's designed in a certain manner.
Sure. Yeah, as you may have read, I mean, in the last few days, the All India Handicraft Board has recently been
Yes.
scrapped, disbanded in the Textile Ministry and the central government. And
Yeah.
so what is the role of these advisory bodies in this respect? I mean, your thoughts, I mean, would such legislations impact the field of materiality in India if we had, I mean, do we have organizations or apex bodies like this?
I see. I think like this might just get me into trouble, but I think that
Get you. That's lovely.
I think that see there are a bunch of us who are actually really looking at it very very carefully, but from a larger spectrum, when you're speaking to the weavers, when you're actually on the ground and you're talking to them, you're seeing it, then you see that there is a sort of disparity, and they are not being treated, or the portray is something else, but the reality is absolutely different. So I guess like this board was essentially, it was important because it did have like a sort of a hold, and like it was there, like there was something, it sees something, it was very mild, but there was something which was there, that there is something, there was sort of an anchor. But now that that anchor is sort of demolished, it's just like it will affect all of us. It will affect the way we look at craft, the way we want to create material, I mean different fabrics, like anything, like, and how we look at weavers. Can weavers go ahead and create a union to put their foot down, like all of that. So yes, definitely, like it will definitely change this entire sort of a, I mean, it will probably start a movement. I think
Mhm.
that's become like a thing in India right now.
I'm going to go to some of the audience questions because they keep pouring in, and I feel very bad if I ask my own questions and not the audience ones. So Sanjay asked, "Is origami structures in paper? Is paper, I guess, used in construction, water and fireproof?" And there's another question coming from another person: "Is are paper textiles such as shoes sturdy, as you mentioned?" So just talking about paper
Mhm.
as a medium.
Okay, so paper textiles as shoes is absolutely sturdy. It is one of the, like, paper textile is it's a very strong and a very durable material. I mean, like a small, like one of our small bags can hold somewhere close to about 15 to 20 kgs. So, that is just a handy bag. That is the amount of weight that it can hold. So, yes, it is strong, it is durable, it can be cut in different manner, it can be washed. So it has all the properties that any other fabric has. Like, for example, denim. You can compare a paper fabric to a denim, right? What was the first question?
So is it waterproof and fireproof?
Waterproof, yes. Fireproof, no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's fireproof, but one can make it fireproof. It's not such a big deal not to make it. I mean, you can do it, but the thing is that the reason why we are not doing it is because it does not catch up in flame. It burns from within, so it is so that is one. And the second thing is that I can always give a coating of fire retardant chemical, but then
Mhm.
that stops the purpose of it being completely biodegradable. So
Uh,
you have to choose.
So there's another question is, have you ever worked with plastic waste? And would you share some light on some home experiments with plastic waste?
No, I'm sorry. I haven't actually ever done any experiments with plastic waste. But you can always look at this website, which is called rethinkingplastic.com. And you will have, I mean, you can see what are the different plastic waste that everybody's been working with and how they're working with. So,
Okay. Um, Okay. So Zahra asks, can there be an industry standard that would tell consumers whether something has been made from a product that is part of a linear economy, circular economy, or a biocycle economy? And that's a very important question, because I had a similar question: is how do consumers know how to buy consciously? So when you look at,
Yeah. So, that, well, see, that is how it's most of the designers who are talking about or who are working into circular economy, or they have an extremely transparent web online appearance. So if you go onto their Instagram pages or if you go onto their website, you will see exactly what is happening. uh, there is there are certain standards, industrial standards, where you know that one is following a circular economy. Linear economy, nobody wants to know who's following it, and nobody wants to tell you, because that means that you have to be transparent. You have to be absolutely transparent when you're talking about where and what and how your material is being used. So, how to gauge probably who's actually working with it is to actually look at the kind of Insta posts that they have. What are they sharing? How much of it they are sharing? Which will actually give a consumer. That is how I look at when somebody says that they are circular economy, or they are working with eco-friendly materials and stuff like that. That is how I look at the post to understand how and what they're posting, and how clear and transparent they are with their posts. So
But there's no benchmark or certification which one can look at to say, okay, this is clean and
no,
this is not.
you have a lot of certifications. Like you have certifications. You can there's Ella McFair Foundation, Ellen.
Hmm.
Sorry. So you can look up with them. Then there is Cradle to Cradle certification. Once you have that, then there is Circular Economy trademark. So these are like, and there are institutes and design hubs now which are sort of helping designers to turn into sustainable circular economy program. So yeah.
We've so many questions coming in. The next one is from Hansu Pardiwala. She's an evangelist, activist. I don't know how to describe her in the area I live in. So she says, what kind of fabrics do you accept for pulp stations? And can we set up a collection of clothes to pass it on to you?
We are actually now working with fabrics.
Okay.
We are working.
People who are?
Sorry.
Do you know people who are working with fabric?
Yeah, of course. There are a lot of people who I know who are working, and we can always I can always connect you to them, who are actually just taking paper. I mean, who are taking a waste fabric and converting it to yarn and making something more out of it. So yeah.
So I think maybe what we can do, I know you had a film, a list of films one can watch on this, a resource bank. So if we can add to that, what we can do is email our participants a reference list that could kind of help them. And we have so many more questions that I don't think we can get to in the interest of time. So I'd just like to make this the last question, and say thank you
Okay.
for actually this wonderful, very insightful masterclass. And I'm going through your presentation yesterday and today. I mean, it's been quite insightful for me myself. Another thank you to our partners, the CSMVS, Mr. Mukherjee, Brinda Miller, Joyati, and Urvashi, for partnering with us to make this happen. And thank you, participants, for being here, and hope you've gained some insight. And apologies for the technology glitches. It happens. It's life. This is the new normal, as they would say. Stay tuned and engaged with our programs for the rest of Avid Online. Our next online session is on Art and Identity 2020, which is on Thursday, the 20th of August. To find out more, follow us at Avid Learning. You'll find all the information. Until then, next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember that learning never stops. Thank you so much, Sriha. Have a
Thank
good night.
you. Thank you.